الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So alhamdulillah ya akhwan, from the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that inshallah ta'ala tomorrow will begin some of the best days from the days of the year, which are the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And which the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said regarding these days, as it comes in a narration of Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيها أحب إلى الله من هذه العشرة, that there are not any days in which righteous good actions and righteous deeds are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than these 10 days. So it was asked, they said, O Messenger of Allah, وَلَا جِهَادَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, not even going out and fighting in Allah's cause. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَلَا جِهَادَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا رَجُلٌ خَرَجَ بِنَفْسِهِ وَمَالِهِ وَلَمْ يَرْجِعْ بِذَلِكَ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. He said, not even jihad in Allah's cause, in the cause of Allah, except a person who goes out with his self and his wealth and he does not return with either one of them. So the fada'il ya akhwan of these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, which begins tomorrow inshallah ta'ala, the fada'il and the virtues are many. There are many virtues. And this hadith right here is sufficient, showing the virtues of these 10 days. That doing righteous actions in these 10 days are more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than any other days of the year. So that's from one aspect. Another aspect, which we all know, that we are in the days of Hajj. And the Hajj is performed in the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. And other than that, from numerous benefits that Ahl Ilm they mention. But what concerns is in this particular lesson, inshallah ta'ala, this particular small talk and this brief reminder, is one of those virtues from the virtues of these 10 days as concerning the udhiyah, slaughtering the sacrificial animal for the Eid. The slaughter of the sacrificial animal. And the udhiyah, the ta'rif and the definition that the scholars they mention, Shaykh Uthaymeen he mentions here, he says, al-udhiyah ma yudhbahu fi ayyam al-nahr taqarruban ila Allah. The udhiyah is that which is sacrificed on the days of nahr for the purpose of one coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani it's an act of worship. And the days of nahr are the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul Hijjah. The 10th, of course, is the day of the Eid, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. And the 11th, 12th, and 13th are what days? Ayyam Tashriq, the days of Tashriq. Naam. So these 4 days, these are the days of Nahr. And the Udhiyah is that which is slaughtered during those days, during one of those 4 days, taqarruban ila Allah, for the purpose of gaining the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this great act of worship. And it was called the Udhiyah لأنها تذبح ضحى بعد صلاة العيد. It was named Udhiyah, normally it is slaughtered duha at the time of forenoon, the duha time, after the Salat al-Eid. After the Salat al-Eid, as we know that the slaughtering is after the Salah and not before the Salah. And whoever slaughters before the Salah, then that slaughtering is not a valid slaughter for the Udhiyah. So Shaykh Uthaymeen says, so the Udhiyah is Sunnah. أجمع المسلمون على مشروعيتها. And the Muslims, they have consensus regarding its legislativeness. وهي في كل ملة. And also you find the udhiyah in every nation, that it was a sunnah in every nation. And this is due to the statement of Allah, وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا لِيَذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَى مَا رَزَقَهُم مِّن بَهِيمَةِ الْأَنْعَامِ. And for every nation, we have appointed a ritual, so they may remember the name of Allah for that which He has provided for them from the beast of cattle. Surah Al-Hajj, ayah 34. So the udhiyah was something, ya ikhwan, something which was mashru' and legislated in every millah, in every nation. However, is this something wajib or something sunnah? Is it something wajib, Shaykh Uthaymeen says, or is it a sunnah which is hated that one leaves it off, or is it a sunnah that is not even hated if a person leaves it off? Shaykh Uthaymeen said the ulama, they have different positions regarding its hukum, its ruling. So the first position is that it's sunnah, and that it is disliked for the one who's able to do it to leave it off. The second position is that it's wajibah. The udhiyah is wajibah, that is obligatory. And this was the position of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and one of the positions of Imam Ahmad. And this was the position chosen by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. As he said, إِنَّ الظَّاهِرَ وُجُوبُهَا. The apparent is that it's obligatory. وَأَنَّ مَنْ قَدِرَ عَلَيْهَا فَلَمْ يَفْعَلْ فَهُوَ آثِمٌ. And whoever is able to do so and leaves it off, then they're sinful. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions it, paired with the salah, as He said, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So pray for the sake of your Lord, and wanhar, and slaughter. Surah Al-Kawthar. And also the statement of Allah, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, indeed, my prayer, my sacrifice, and my living and my dying is for Allah, Lord of the Alameen. Now, and it also, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentioned and reiterated its rulings and its benefits in Surah Al-Hajj. And something which is affair, this is the case of that affair, then it is something that is wajib, and that is obligatory for a person who's able to do so. So that's the first point, ya ikhwan, that if a person, no doubt, if a person is able to slaughter, and if a person is able to sacrifice an udhiyah, and they have the means, then wallahi, it's incumbent for a person not to leave it. That a person should practice the sunnah. If a person is able to do it, and a person is qadir, he's able and he has the ability to do it, and he has the financial means, then a person should do it. And no doubt that what Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned regarding his wujub is something strong. Shaykh al-Uthaymeen, he continues and he says, وَهِيَ مِن نِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ أَنْ يَشْرَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مَا يُشَارِكْ بِهِ أَهْلِ مَوْسِمِ الْحَجِّ. This is a benefit that Shaykh Uthaymeen is going to mention, ya ikhwan, because some people they don't realize the hikmah behind, and it's an act of ubudiyyah, bila shak, is an act of servitude for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, an act of worship. However, this what Shaykh Uthaymeen is going to mention right here, yani, it shows even more that a person who's able to do it, they should do so. He says, and it's from in their udhiyah, it is from the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those great favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon His servants. Whereas He legislated an act of worship in which the one not making hajj participates in one of the rituals performed by those making hajj. So we know from the manasik al-hajj, from the rituals of hajj, is that a person must slaughter a hadi, which is a sacrificial animal, which is given to the fuqara of Mecca, which is given to the poor of Mecca. So we know this is to be an act from the rituals of hajj. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy and out of His fadl, Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, وَلِهَذَا نَجِدْ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَرَحْمَتِهِ. So for this reason we see from the virtues of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from His blessings and from His mercy, أنه جعل لأهل الأمصار, that He made for the people of the towns, meaning the people outside of Mecca, not making Hajj, نصيبا مما لأهل المناسك, He gave them a share of the rites done by the pilgrims doing Hajj. He gave them a share of the rites done by the pilgrims doing Hajj. And this is something, wallahi, this is something amazing, ya ikhwan, because not every year is a person able to make Hajj. And it's almost, you almost won't find a Muslim except that every year that his heart is inclined to go to Hajj, but everybody's not able to do so due to certain reasons, not having the money, not having, and different reasons. But look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His mercy, that He made for the people not making Hajj a way to resemble the Hujjaj, those pilgrims making Hajj, by giving them a share of one of those rituals that the people of Hajj they do, which is the slaughtering. Likewise, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has legislated regarding the Ahl al-Amsar, those not making Hajj, however they intend to slaughter, is another act of ubudiyyah, an act of a mansak, which also must be done for the one who intends to slaughter the udhiyah. And it is that one stays away from clipping the nails and cutting the hair. And this is once the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah begin, which inshallah will begin tomorrow. Once the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah enters and a person has the need to slaughter, then they don't take from their nails, they don't clip their nails, and they don't and they don't shave their hair, and they don't cut their hair. They don't take anything from their hair. They don't take anything from the hair on their body, nor do they clip their nails. And this is also sharing one of those rituals that the people of Hajj, those making Hajj, they do, because once they enter in the state of Ihram, then it is impermissible for them to do what? To take anything from their hair or to clip their nails. So Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, Naam. So he goes on to say, من أجل أن يشارك أهل الأمصار أهل الإحرام. So those outside of Mecca, they can participate in this ritual act of worship for Allah done by those in Ihram, by leaving off, clipping the nails, and etc., and taking from the hair. تقربين إلى الله, as an act of worship and coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also they share the rights of those performing the Hajj by slaughtering the adahi, by slaughtering the sacrificial animal. لأنه لولا هذه المشروعية, because if it wasn't that this was legislated, that if it wasn't that it was legislated for this purpose, for those aforementioned reasons, لكان ذبحها بدعة, slaughtering on that day, it would have been an innovation, and a person would have been prohibited from it. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated the slaughtering of the udhiyah for these great benefits. Allahu Akbar. So that's a great fa'idah mentioned by Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin rahimahullah. So he says, فَالْقَوْلُ بِالْوُجُوبِ, the opinion of it being obligatory is more apparent, أظهر, than the opinion of it not being obligatory. لكن بشرط القدرة, with the condition that one is able to do so. أما العاجز, as for the one who's not able to do so, the one who's incapable of doing so, الذي ليس عنده إلا مؤنة أهله, the one who does not have except he only has that which meets the need of him supporting his family, or he has a debt, فإنه لا تلزمه الأضحية, then the slaughtering of the sacrificial animal, the udhiyah, is not obligatory upon him. Rather, if he has a debt, it is incumbent that he begins with paying that debt before slaughtering. This is Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentions rahimahullah. So that's the first thing. We went over that's the ta'rif of the udhiyah and some of the hikmah and the wisdom behind it, and regarding the hukm of the udhiyah, its ruling. Now we would like to mention, ikhwan, the shurut of the udhiyah, the conditions. And it has 4 conditions. The udhiyah, for the slaughtering of the udhiyah, has 4 conditions. The first condition, to memorize them because I'm going to ask you afterwards, inshallah ta'ala. The first condition, أن تكون من بهيمة الأنعام, that the udhiyah, it be from the bahimat al-an'am, or the beast of cattle, which are what? The camel, the baqarah, the ibl, the baqarah, and the ghanam. The camel, or the cow, or the ghanam, which includes sheep and goats. This is ghanam. Ghanam it comprises both sheep and goats. So this is the first condition. It must be from the bahimat al-an'am that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. And this is either the ibl, the camel has to be either slaughtered, or the baqar, the cow, or the ghanam, sheep or goats. And this is due to the statement of Allah, ala ma razaqahum min bahimat al-an'am, due to that which He provided for them from beast of cattle. Surah Al-Hajj, ayat 28. So Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, so if a person slaughters a hayawan, an animal, which may be even more expensive than the bahimat al-an'am, these beasts of cattle that were mentioned, then it won't be valid. Then it won't be valid. Even if that other animal was way more expensive than one of these animals. So he says, for example, so if a person wanted to يذبح فرسا يضحي بفرس, sacrifice, for example, a faras, a horse, that costs 10,000 riyal, 10,000 riyals, instead of a shat, a sheep, that costs, for example, 300 riyals, it still won't be valid for him. Because why? That first condition, that it must be from the bahimat al-an'am. It must be from the beast of cattle. So that's the first condition, ya ikhwan. The second condition for the validity of one slaughter to be correct, for the one slaughtering to be correct, أن تكون قد بلغت السن المعتبرة شرعا, that particular animal, it must have reached the proper age indicated by the Sharia. It's not any animal. You just go see an animal, a sheep, and you can just slaughter, or a goat, you just slaughter it. La, or a camel, you go and see a camel, you just slaughter it. Or that you make a nahr of the camel. But rather, the animal, it must have reached the proper age indicated by the Sharia. If it's under the age indicated by the Sharia, then it won't be valid. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, and this is due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا تذبحوا إلا مسنة إلا أن تعصر عليكم فتذهبوا جذعة من الضأن. Do not slaughter except the musanna, that which has the teeth, and we're going to explain that. That which has the teeth. Except if it's a hardship for you, then you can slaughter جذعة من الضأن. Then you can slaughter the jad'a, or that sheep which has completed 6 months. Which has reached the age of and completed the age of 6 months. جذعة من الضأن. وخص الضأن دون المعز لأنه أطيب لحما. Shaykh Uthaymeen also says that the Prophet ﷺ, he specified the ضأن, the sheep, instead of the goat, the ma'az, because it's أطيب لحما, the meat of the sheep is better. The meat of the sheep is better. So he goes on to say, فَإِنْ كَانَ دُونَ ذَلِكَ فَإِنَّهَا لَا تُجْزِي. So, if the ضأن, for example, if the sheep is less than 6 months, 6 months, the age of the sheep is less than 6 months, then it won't be valid. Then it will not be valid. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he also says, also in the condition, these two conditions, that the sacrificial animal be from the bahimat al-an'am, the beast of cattle that were mentioned, and also the mentioning that it has to be at a particular age, it shows us أنه ليس المقصود من الأضحية مجرد اللحم. The intent by the sacrificial animal is not just the meat. It's not just so you can slaughter and you have some meat to eat. وإلا لأجزأت بالصغير والكبير, because if this was the case, the small animal and the large animal, they all would have been valid for a person to slaughter. So this shows you that it's not just for the meat, but it's a great act of worship to be done. So as for the ibl, ya ikhwan, as for the camel, the ibl, the age that the ibl or the camel must be for it to be a valid udhiyah is 5 سنين. It must have completed 5 years. And this is what they call in Arabic the thani. The thani, yani that which has the teeth. These is the thanaya, the teeth, these teeth. The thani, meaning that the camel has to have completed 5 years. Yani going towards the 6th year. Going towards its 6th year. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, so whatever is less regarding the camel, if it's less than 5 years, it's not valid to be an udhiyah or a hadi at all, not in any case. He says, why? لأن الإبل, because the camel لا تثني, it doesn't grow those teeth, إلا إذا تم لها 5 سنين, except if it's completed 5 years. So look, ya akhwan, and this is a side benefit. Look on how having fiqh fi deen, having fiqh in the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it also gives a person insight in the affairs of the religion. So for example, if a person was at the zoo with their family, whatever the case may be, and they seen a camel and they had the teeth, you know the camel was not less than 5 years old. You know it's going to be 5 years old going to the 6th or greater than that. أليس كذلك? Now, so this shows ya akhwan having fiqh fi deen. It even gives a person insight in the affairs of the dunya. So the camel has to have completed 5 years. وَالْبَقَرْ سَنَتَانِ. As for the cow, then it must have completed 2 years. As for the cow, it must have completed 2 years. وَالْمَعَزْ سَنَةً. And as for the goat, 1 year. And as for the da'an, the sheep, half of that, which is 6 months. Alright? So let's run it back. The camel, how old? Has it completed 5 years. The cow, 2 years. Has it completed 2 years. The ma'as, the goat, 1 year. And the da'an, the sheep, 6 months. Anything less than that, ya akhwan, la tujzi. It's not valid. فَلَا يُجْزِي مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. That which is less than that, then is not valid. And of course, yani, these years are counted with the shuhur al-hilaliyah, and this is in every act of worship. Every act of worship, yani, that's related to time, then we go by the shuhur al-ashhur al-hilaliyah. Shaykh Fawzan, he says, nisf al-sana, yani meaning for the da'an, 6 months. He says, 6 ashhur hilaliyah, 6 months on the lunar calendar. يعني ولا عبرة بالأشهر غير الهلالية, and consideration isn't given to any months other than the lunar months. And this is due to the statement of Allah, يسألونك عن الأهلة. They will ask you concerning the new moons, the phases of the new moons. قل هي مواقيت للناس والحج. Say they are appointed signs for the people and for Hajj. So it's Baqarah ayat 189. Another mas'ala, ya akhwan. فإذا قال قائل, if a person says, هل يكتفي بقول البائع, can we suffice ourselves and trust the statement of the one who's selling the animal? Because everybody may not be able to know what ages are the animals. So is it sufficient that we take the statement of the seller of the animal? Shaykh Uthaymeen says, فيه تفصيل. And he has a detailed explanation. If the seller is thiqa, if he's trustworthy, فإن قوله مقبول. The statement of the trustworthy is taken in the religion. Yani he's a Muslim that's trustworthy. Then يعني خبره مقبول. His statement is accepted. Just like any other affairs of the religion. And if he's not thiqa, and if he's a person who's not thiqa, and he tells you something which gives you an indication that he's lying, then you shouldn't trust him, especially if you find a qarina, something that shows you that he's lying, then you don't trust him in that case. But if he brings some adillah that shows that he's sadiq, that he's truthful, then la ba's. Then Shaykh Uthaymeen also says, وَإِذَا كَانَ الْإِنسَانِ نَفْسُهُ يَعْرِفُ السِّنْ بِالْإِطِّلَاعِ عَلَى أَسْنَانِهَا. And if a person knows the age of the animal by looking at the teeth, or the likes of those matters, then this is sufficient. If a person can do that. The third shart, or the third condition for the udhiyah to be valid, as-salamatu min al-uyub, al-mani' min al-ijza'. It cannot have any defects or any ailments that causes it not to be valid, and we're going to get into that. And the fourth condition, and takun fi waqt al-dhabh, that the slaughtering must be in the legislated time frame. And we mentioned the legislated time frame, yani those 4 days, Yawm al-Eid, wa Ayyam al-Tashriq, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th of the Hijjah. So again, who can run the 4 conditions back to us? Sheikh Haris, faddal.
Okay, the first one is the evaluated the sacrifice of camel, the cow, and the sheep and the goat.
Naam, so that's the first condition I sent. It must be from what? The beast of camel, Bahimat al-An'am. And if it's not from those things, is it valid? Sheikh Haris? If it's not from those animals, is it valid?
No.
It's not valid. Tayyib, the second condition.
That it must be of age.
It must be of the proper age. What are the ages for the camel?
Camel is 5 years or older. Cow 2 years.
Nah.
Sheep and goat 1 year.
Yani.
The goat 1 year.
Ahsant.
And the sheep 6 months.
6 months. Ahsant. The third condition.
It must be healthy.
Naam. It must be healthy. It must have no uyub, no ailments or no illnesses. And the last one?
Last one must be at the given the proper time.
Allahu Akbar. Allah Akbar. The Shaykh Hifz might be better than a lot of ours, mashallah. They say when Allah perhaps takes something and give you something better. Jazakallah khairan. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan. Now, so there are the 4 conditions for the conditions of the udhiyah to be valid. Then he goes on to say, Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, وَتُجْزِيَ الشَّاةِ عَنْ وَاحِدٍ. The Sahib al-Zad, he said, and a sheep is valid for one person. Meaning, يُضَحِي الْإِنسان بِالشَّاةِ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ, that a person, he sacrifices a sheep for himself and his household, and he gets the he gets the reward for him and his household. And this is because the Messenger of Allah says, as it comes in the hadith, كان يضحي بالشاة الواحدة, that he would slaughter one shat on his behalf and the behalf of his household. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had tisa niswa. So it shows that if a person has more than one wife, then it's sufficient that he slaughters just one animal. It's sufficient that he slaughters just one animal. وَالْبَدَنَ وَالْبَقْرَ عَنْ سَبْعَةٍ. And the cow and the camel is valid for 7 people to slaughter from. The cow and the camel, that 7 people can go in on one cow, or 7 people can go in on one camel. The delay for this is the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhu. He said, نحرنا في عام الهديبية البدن عن 7 والبقرة عن 7. That we slaughtered in the year of Hudaybiyah the camel, 7 went in on a camel, and 7 went in on a baqarah, a cow. So that's also from the rulings that if a person is slaughtering a sheep, then there's only one person can go in for a sheep. But if it's a camel or a cow, then 7 people can share a cow, or 7 people can share a camel.
What about the goat?
La. That's good. No, it's one person for the goat as well, and the sheep. Just one person. Okay, as for the uyub, as for those deficiencies and those ailments within the animal, then there are 4 things as well. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu su'ila ماذا يتقي من الضحايا. He was asked what animal should be stayed away from regarding the slaughter for the Eid, for the udhiyah. So the Prophet sallallahu he said, 4 وأشار بأصابعه, and he indicated with his fingers, al-awra, and then he continued. So he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, al-awra بين العورة بين al-bayin awruha, the one-eye animal which has obviously lost his sight in one eye. The one-eye animal which has obviously lost his sight in one eye. And the maridah, the sick animal which is obviously sick. The third is the lame animal which obviously limps. Yani it doesn't walk correctly. It has a limp. And the ajfa, the animal, la mukha laha, yani the animal which is ajfa, the one that has no bone marrow. So you find it being weak because of not having any bone marrow. So these are those animals that have uyub that a person must stay away from. Some of them also mention the hatma, which is the animal here التي سقطت ثناياها من أصلها, the animal which teeth has come out from its roots. But Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says the most correct that tujzi, that is valid because it's not from those four that was mentioned in the hadith. And likewise, some of them also mention the jida, al-jida, and this is the animal, wal-jida hiya allati nashafa dar'uha, which yani the milk has dried up from the sheep which milk has dried up, or the animal which milk has dried up because of old age. Some of the ulama say also this is not valid. Some also say this is not valid. However, Shaykh Uthaymeen says it has no dalil upon this being not valid, and it also is not from those four that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith. So he says, this the rajih and this masal and this issue, that it is valid. Those two animals are valid.
What about the animal that is healthy but it's cross-eyed?
Allahu alam. Allahu alam. I think Shaykh Uthaymeen mentions it as well. I didn't come across it, but I think he mentions it here. So that's regarding the uyub, ya ikhwan. So a person has to pay attention to make sure his animal does not have any uyub, any of those deficiencies, any of those ailments. Nah.
The animal with no teeth, does that mean like old age with no teeth, or deformed as well?
Allah alam, Shaykh Uthaymeen says those teeth that fell out from his roots. He says if the teeth, for example, in kasar, if it was cracked but it was still in the roots, then it's still permissible. But those that came out of its roots, then it's not, usually is not valid. طيب يا اخوان, we end off inshallah ta'ala. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last but not least, mentioning what is said when a person slaughters. The Mu'allif al-Zad, he says, وَيَقُولْ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ. Then one says, while slaughtering, he says, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Shaykh Uthaymeen, he says, Bismillah is wajib, wujuban. Bismillah wujuban. لأنها من شرط حل الذبيحة أو النحيرة. He said, لأن من شرط حل الذبيحة أو النحيرة التسمية. He said, Bismillah is obligatory because from the conditions of the dhabiha being permissible to eat is the tasmiyah, saying Bismillah. Allahu Akbar is istihbaban. Allahu Akbar, this is recommended to say afterwards. So a person says Bismillah, Wallahu Akbar. So he goes on to say, وَالتَّسْمِيَ عَلَى الذَّبِيحَ شَرْطٌ مِنْ شُرُوطِ صِحَّةِ التَّذْكِيَةِ. And slaughtering over the dhabiha, the sacrificial animal, the animal being sacrificed, is a condition from the conditions of slaughtering. وَلَا تَسْقُطْ لَا عَمْدٍ وَلَا سَهْوٍ وَلَا جَهْلًا. And it cannot be left off purposely or forgetfully or out of ignorance. وَذَلِكَ لِأَنَّهَا مِنَ الشُّرُوطِ. And this is because it is from the shurut. And the shurut is that which cannot be left off purposely or forgetfully or jahlan or out of ignorance. And this is due to the statement of Allah, ولا تأكلوا مما لم يذكر اسم الله عليه. And do not eat from that which the name of Allah has not been mentioned over. Surah Al-An'am, ayat 121. Naam. And this was that which was easy to mention, ya akhwan, regarding the issue of the udhiyah, the slaughtering, the sacrificial animal, يوم العيد. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. حسن تعال تفضل استقبل الأسئلة يا أخي. تفضل. One second. Sheikh Haris. نعم. نعم start because the first it starts at the Maghrib, أحسنت, because Maghrib time, then it will start the first because the night precedes the day. So so Maghrib time we will be officially in the first of the Hijjah. So after Maghrib a person doesn't take anything from the nails or doesn't take anything from the hair. أحسنت. تفضل يا شيخ حارس.
Yes, if a person has the means to start but don't have the physical ability, and they pay somebody to do it for them.
نعم.
Person go without cutting their hair and nails as well. Or which one do the one who do the actual slaughtering, or the one who they're doing it for?
As mentioned, the ulama, they mentioned that the person who has the intention to do it but can't do it physically, they also stay away from taking anything from the nails or taking anything from the hair. But as for the person, for example, the person at the butcher's is going to slaughter, then it's not incumbent upon him to withhold from taking from his nails or taking from his hair. I just read that. I read it from the fatwa from the Lajnat al-Da'ima or Sheikh Uthaymeen. But for example, in the case that you wanted to slaughter, and you place your attention to slaughter, you as well, you don't take anything from your nails or anything from your hair. But the person who's actually going to do the slaughter at the butcher's, for example, then he doesn't have to take from his hair or his nails. Nah.
What about the one who is paying his money and doing the slaughtering, but he's doing it for someone else?
Say it again.
The one who's paying his money, using his own money.
Right.
He's doing it for, say, for example, you didn't have the means or the capability to do so.
Nah.
And I say, okay, Anwar, I'm going to pay for you, and I'm going to do it for you.
He's going to pay for me and do for me?
And do it for you.
الله أعلم. ماذا ترى يا حسن؟
But he was healthy.
God. وجه السؤال يا حسن.
Basically, Hassan, he doesn't have the financial ability or he doesn't have the physical ability or the financial means to do so. So I say, Hassan, listen, I'm going to pay for you and I'm going to slaughter for you also. At this, do I have to, say for example, would this guy or this individual, would he also not take from his hair and from his nails?
الله أعلم.
So is he asking, is the individual, the other guy, not take from his?
الله أعلم
The
يعني.
butcher, I was asking about the butcher.
تفضل حسن.
As far as the rulings dealing with, the way you slaughter, is there anything that says in particular that one has to slaughter with his right hand? Or is this rule, if you slaughter with your left hand, nothing that somebody's left-handed, or they have a deficiency with their?
the أصل in عباد and acts of worship in the likes of these matters is التيامن. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعجب التيامن, starting doing things with his right. Those things which are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes from the hadith of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. But of course, if a person is not able to do so because of some type of deficiency in their arm and the likes of those matters, then لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. They slaughter as it is easy for them. Now,
You have the physical ability to slaughter, but you don't want to. Is it obligatory that you have?
Sheikh Uthaymeen, he mentions, quoting from Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, that he sees the wujub, that it's obligatory, and that if a person leaves it off, and this is Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he mentioned that a person leaves it off and he's able to do so, he's financially able to do so, and he leaves it off, then he says he's atham, he's sinful. Even though the majority of the ulama says it's sunnah mu'akkada, but no doubt, like as we mentioned in the beginning, that if a person has the means to do so and to slaughter, a person shouldn't leave it off. And a person should revive this great sunnah. As the Messenger of Allah said, he used to do it.
I don't think that was his question, was it?
No, I want to know if he was physically able to do so, if he had to do so. Why?
I mean, meaning if you pay somebody, you give somebody the money, and they do it for you?
I was talking about physically.
Okay.
Now,
In other words, can he pay somebody to do it? He don't want to do it physically. He
la,
wanna pay somebody to do it.
he's asking Sheikh that he's able to do so, but he's just leaving it off. What's the hukum on that? Nah. Nah. Salam.
The debt, as far as, is that covered regular mandatory bills that we have to pay, or is that something that we have maybe entered into a contract other than the usual utilities and things of this nature?
Good question. Allahu a'lam. Allahu a'lam. Hassan, عندك شيء؟ Allahu a'lam. Good question. I don't know. Now, that was something I thought was going to come up, but I didn't get a chance to come across anything. Because some people, they may have different bills and things like this, regular bills, monthly bills and things like this. Or he mentioned, like, for example, some person may have a contract with a brother, for example, that they have to pay this debt. Allahu a'lam.
The situation with the woman who's not married, but she has the ability to slaughter.
She can appoint someone, just like the earlier question. She can appoint someone to slaughter. Nah, she can appoint someone, no doubt.
I mean, as far as the obligation, some will listen to some of the
I mean, it's just like the man, just like the man, no doubt, because the asl and the ahkam al-shar between the man and the woman is taswi, is they're the same, just like the man.
If somebody takes from his hair and his nails, does that make his slaughtering valid?
Allahu a'lam. Allahu a'lam. Some of the ulama, they mentioned though that if a person, for example, in the beginning of the month of the Hijjah, they didn't have the intention to slaughter, then for some reason they came across the means of the likes of these matters. The ulama, they mentioned that once you have that niyyah and that to do it, even if it's after those days and you have the ability to do it afterwards, then from that time, then you stop. Then you cease from taking anything from your nails or your hair. That's another benefit that the ulama, they mentioned that I came across. No. No.
As far as Yawmul Nadhr and the days of Tashriq, is it more superior to slaughter on Yawmul Nadhr?
Yawm al-Nahr, nah. It's more superior. Bila shak, to do it after the Eid is more superior, bila shak. As the ulama mentioned, I think Sheikh Fawzan mentioned it. Abdurrahman, did he mention al-Mulakhis? Sheikh Fawzan. One of the ulama, they mentioned that it's afdal to do it after the Eid, on Yawm al-Nahr. نعم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.